Taking amazing product photography at home doesn't have to be expensive. You just have to know what you're doing. I sure as hell don't know what I'm doing, so I brought my mate Kane in here, who's a professional photographer, to teach me exactly how to take photos like these. So when you're taking product photography, you need to actually buy the product, have it delivered to your house, and have a play around with it. When you're playing around with it, you need to write down the features, and that is how you're going to get really good product photography, because it's not just going to be beautiful, it's going to be meaningful. So we've got water resistant, eco-friendly, plastic alternative, durable, and form fitting. So we have figured out how to do that with some of these features, but we haven't quite figured out how to capture all of those. For example, durable is quite hard to photograph. It's better on video. We can pull it, we can stretch it, we can stand on it. On photo, it's a little bit different. So what we've gone for is a plastic alternative with these photos next to the Tupperware. And we've also gone with these form-fitting ones wrapped over the watermelon. Water resistant was a really easy one to do as well, because we could just spray the bees wrap with a little spray gun and cover it in water, showing that it shields water as well. So always write down the features before you start randomly shooting photos.
It's a common misconception that to take good product photos, you need an expensive camera like this, or expensive lights, a studio, a light box, all the things that get marketed for product photos. The reality is this and this both capture light. And it's how you manipulate and use the light that will produce a brilliant photograph. Yeah, so that's why using this bathroom scene, we have actually used the natural light of the windows with just some baking paper, which helps diffuse it and make it a bit softer on the objects we are trying to photograph. That means that there's no harsh solid light or any of the reflections, which is particularly difficult when you're shooting on a cell phone, is that the cameras sometimes can be a bit tricky when there's harsh light hitting a shiny subject matter, similar to say a pineapple, watermelon, anything like that.
So as we've been experimenting with this little process, we've discovered that natural light works very, very well. But natural light can be a bit too harsh if you don't diffuse it. So simple solution was a bit of baking paper, a bit of tape, and we've just covered up these windows, not the whole window, but just the amount of light from those windows that comes into our little scene here. So you don't really need to buy expensive lights. You don't need to buy stands, sandbags, all of that. You can actually just use a window. So it's about 2:30 p.m., 3:30. The light's coming directly into this bathroom. And we've actually faked a kitchen scene with these black tiles. So now let's take a look at the photos. The photos were taken with a Samsung Note 8 and a Canon 5D Mark III. So what was better? Well, we'll take a look at that. But firstly, Kane tells me that on the Samsung Note 8, the camera is actually overridden by an automated function. The camera, you can't control the mechanics on the camera manually. Whereas on the Canon DSLR, you have complete control over the exposure triangle. So the exposure triangle is aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Shutter speed just determines how long the shutter opens for and how long your image is exposed onto the sensor. Aperture just determines how much light is let through the lens, and ISO determines how sensitive the sensor is inside the camera. Whereas inside of the phone, all of that is just decided by the computer, and you get no control over the image. You also have the one lens from the phone, unless you buy extensions, which means you don't get to control the focus, and that is the distinguishing factor between these photos. So inside of the camera, for example, if we have a look at these photos that were taken in the bathroom, you can see the difference in sharpness on the watermelon and on the pineapple. This one was from the DSLR, and this one is from the phone. You can see there on the DSLR, the image, the focus is sharper. You can see how this is a lower quality image. It's just got less fidelity to it all around. And also the computer has decided to make the image a little bit more bright than that more dramatic high contrast image that you get from the DSLR. So there you have it. It's up to you if you want that compatibility and convenience factor from having a little phone in your pocket, or if you want high fidelity and lots of control with the DSLR. So the one thing that you should remember when you go out and take product photography is, what are people going to think when they see the photo? Me and Kane today have tried to tell a story.
Exactly. Taking great product photos is about finding the features that really matter and highlighting those in the photos. It's not just about taking pretty pictures, it's about selling the product. That's why today we've tried to teach you basic skills that you don't need a fancy camera and you don't need fancy lighting for. You just need to think about how you are using the light you have available, where you're taking the photo, and what those photos are saying to your customers.
Yeah, 100%. And you can also see that we haven't really tried too hard with the gear either. The baking paper, the natural light from the window in the bathroom, and the natural light here outside on this wooden table. And of course the Samsung smartphone, which if you don't have access to, ask around and borrow a mate's camera for the day. And if you're lucky enough to know somebody with a DSLR, play around with that too. But as you can see in the edits, it isn't that different. They have their own strengths and weaknesses, but as Kane said earlier, people on Instagram aren't really going to be able to tell the difference because it's going to get compressed so much and it's only going to be seen for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, ultimately you have a very short window of time. You want your products to tell the story. It doesn't really matter if it's taken on a phone or a camera. Of course, if you have the camera, if you have the lighting, use it. But by all means, as we've shown you today, you don't need much. You probably already have it in your home.
100%. All right. Thanks for watching, and I hope that was useful to you. Have a lovely rest of your day.